Welcome back to the Dead Space Deep Cover story and lore analysis. In today's video, we will be learning more about the church's operations and one of their rituals known as soul cleansing, along with more character details and world building. So without any more delays, let's dive back into Dead Space Deep Cover. In the beginning of this episode, Overseer Raider had learned that the investigation into Zane's untimely demise had been swaying towards the Church of Unitology, and so he goes to meet with the Colonial Minister in an attempt to get him to steer the investigation in a different direction away from the church, which the Minister had been surprised to see the Overseer outside the cathedral walls, but also shows how he has a level of distrust towards his peers within the government, referring to it as a shark tank, always looking for something, anything, to gain a foothold or leverage in their pursuit for power among society. The Overseer explains to the Minister that the investigation had been making some extremely ill-advised assumptions about the church, where he was hoping that the Minister could help them in their time of need, further stating that this isn't just an issue for the church, but for the colony as a whole, which is framing things to make it seem like the Minister would also be affected by this investigation. But the Minister explains to him that he doesn't hold any power over the colonial police, which displeases Raider, with him attempting to manipulate and guilt trip the Minister by reminding him that they have always supported his career and how the church had seen a friend in him, which frames things as he isn't upholding his end of the bargain, that they chose to help him in his endeavors, but now when they need something, he won't return the favor. But when that doesn't work, the Overseer tries another angle to get what he wants, stating that the Minister would always be welcome at the cathedral, making it seem like he has an ally in future endeavors. But even that doesn't persuade the Minister, but then the Overseer shows him a recording of Zane's death and explaining that whoever is responsible for sending that person after Zane would have had to have known the details of his living arrangements.
Whatever it is, someone responsible for Zane's death must have sent it. They would require extensive knowledge of Mr. Zane's lodgings and itinerary. Such a plan could only be achieved with considerable resources and faultless loyalty among their associates.
They would, whoever they are. It makes me glad our security here is so much tighter than Zane's.
I understand it is excellent. I should thank your security department for offering employment to so many of my fellow Unitologists. Of course, they are admirably subtle about flaunting their faith in the workplace. You have no way of knowing which ones serve the church.
If I could help you, Overseer, I would. Really, I would.
I understand you are a man of extraordinary resourcefulness. I'm sure you could find a way.
You are overestimating the influence I have over the police.
If you focus on these frames, Minister, you might see Mr. Zane's torso coming apart at the waist. Would you believe it's a survivable injury? For a short while, at least. At this point, he is still alive. And going by his face, still conscious. Quite fascinating. It's just how much ruination the human body can go through before death finally occurs.
Oh, is that his spine?
You know, Minister, I rather think it is.
Which I took that as a subtle threat, that maybe if he doesn't follow suit, the same thing could happen to the Minister. But the Minister's response is that he will inform someone in the police that someone is trying to smear the church in an effort to sway them from looking deeper. The next scene brings us to a meditation room, where a session is afoot, with Unitologists visualizing in their minds an environment opening themselves up to a vision, which one describes the environment to be a desert, not one of heat, but of cold, which the instructor tells him that he is seeing the surface of his own mind. He continues to say that he sees a tree with heads forming out from the branches like fruit, where the instructor explains that this is the tree of unity, that some people have detailed how the marker uses this symbol, where all souls are fruit and leaves growing from the same branches, which could be symbolism on becoming as one with the marker, losing that sense of individuality and becoming absorbed by the marker. But it could also refer to how a marker will raise a species' intelligence, building them up and helping them in their development, like growing fruit from branches. But it could also symbolize how a Brethren moon is born, with the necromorphs and marker fusing into one entity. Another initiate, Jeanette, explains that she can see her father, with him explaining that he is proud of her, but that she has more work to do, along with talking about convergence. While speaking to her in this vision, she describes him to be a bloodied version, and showing expressions of pain and suffering, which convinces her that she must heal him with convergence. Once Emmeline arrives in the room, she is met by overwhelming amounts of praise and affection from the other initiates, which she later describes as lovebombing, which is a manipulation tactic where she explains how a cult might use this against someone, withdrawing such affection and positive attention as to punish someone until they do as they wish.
It's called lovebombing. Make the newbie feel as welcome as possible. Tell them they're beautiful, blessed, the whole bit. It's right out of the cult playbook. The new member is supposed to be so overwhelmed by the positive vibes, they come to need it, and they're scared of losing it. Then, the cult can withdraw the love, and it becomes a terrifying punishment. So the newbie does everything they're told to avoid being ostracized. Once they get to that stage, they're in forever.
It is here we get a bit more lore on the hierarchy of Unitology, where Emmeline talks to herself that the ladder goes from initiate to vested, and that vested has levels to it, where the newly vested member starts at bronze, then goes to silver, and then to gold. However, she is unaware of which level comes after that. She also guesses that another rank in the church, enigmas, are like high priests. She also says that silver and gold vested members are allowed to pursue a career outside of the church. However, as you climb the ladder, the money or property you are expected to give back to the church is increased. After this, an advert plays that gives us even more details about the vested ranks, that tells us that as a vested, you will gain access to the most sacred writings and scriptures, just like how the woman had spoken about in the previous chapter, which the reason for this will become more apparent later. The advert also says that only those that have a deeper understanding can have access to those texts, where it gives some extra details about the perks, with the newest details being that the vested levels gain access to legal and counseling services, along with meditation and prayer retreats with other members throughout the church, which is what we have seen before on other planets and moons like Venus. The narrator of this advert describes the donations as being like a tax, stating that the vested are tithed for a portion of their earnings that grants happiness and satisfaction to the person, giving them a sense of accomplishment in contributing to the functioning of the church. The vested are also responsible for helping the initiates along the path, watching out for any errors that may come, and if there are issues, then the vested would need to report to an extirpator, which is odd considering the name means to destroy, remove, or exterminate, but also can be a term for pulling something up by the roots. In surgical terms, this would mean to remove a diseased organ, so perhaps the extirpator is a higher authority in the church that will remove people if a situation escalates, but it's just the name that is throwing me off here. The narrator continues by stating that initiates must go through soul cleansing before becoming vested, with the result of the soul cleanse to be getting rid of the sources of pain and frustration one may have, like a person's quote-unquote damaging sense of individuality and inaccurate previous belief systems, and replacing these aspects with a certainty of convergence. Later on, Emmeline had woken up to find herself in darkness and in restraints, where the medtech greets and informs her that she has been chosen to become vested, and she will need to undergo the soul cleansing ritual to mark the progression of initiate to vested, where the overseer, like the name suggests, oversees the operation. The soul cleansing ritual consists of using a surgical rig to target the back of a person's head, where it will cut through the skin and tissue to expose the lambdoid suture, which is a fibrous joint in the skull, located on the posterior aspect of the head, where the next stage begins with the rig drilling through the bone wall to expose the occipital lobe, so they can extend a probe into that part of the brain to cauterize some blood vessels to change a person's behavior, specifically removing the ability to have doubt and affecting past memories, making the person more susceptible to new information, especially since the lobe plays a crucial role in interpreting what we see and processing it. Once the cauterization is complete, the medical technician will remove the surgical instruments and reconnect the piece of the skull, along with reattaching the skin with stitches, and wrap the person's head in bandages so they can heal from the operation. While in the operation, Emmeline pleaded with the overseer, telling him that they can't do this to her, but the overseer states that she had given all decisions of her well-being to the Church of Unitology when she accepted their embrace.
You can't do this, there are rules!
You ceded all decisions pertaining to your well-being to the Church of Unitology when you accepted our embrace. There are no rights save those we give you. This is what is best for you.
So instead of the individual deciding what is best for them in this field, the church now decides, effectively taking away their human rights. But I guess Emmeline should have read the fine print. While they had been cauterizing the cortex, Emmeline had fallen into a vivid dream where she had spoken to Maddi, where through her conversation we can see why she and her mother had been fighting. Maddi had been approached by Unitology before, that she was told that if she rose through the ranks and had gotten to a high enough level, she could bring her family into the cathedral with her, where Maddi saw this as a golden opportunity to get out from the dark place their family found themselves in. And she had been reading up on the teachings of Michael Altman from home. It is possible that Maddi spoke to her mother about what the Unitologists had said to her before, and that's what sparked the fight to occur. But all the fight had done was throw her into the arms of Unitology when she had disappeared. Emmeline further talks about what they did when they couldn't find Maddi, where they tried going to the police, but they wouldn't do anything since teenagers on Ganymede would run away from home all the time but would return at a later time. However, Maddi did not return, and after rummaging through her room, the truth had dawned on them once they had found the Book of Unitology by Michael Altman, giving them all the information they needed to process what happened to Maddi, which had broken her mother's heart. Back in the real world, a problem had occurred with the cauterizer where the medical technician had guessed it to be a software glitch, where she advises aborting the procedure, but the overseer denies the advice and demands that they continue. But the medical technician informs him that if she can't get the bleeding to stop, then she will die, which the overseer was displeased by this news, stating that she is no use to them if she dies. However, after rebooting the rig system, she is able to continue the cauterization and finish the procedure. The overseer also asks if Emmeline is in the realm state, which implies the vivid dream or vision has happened before, while conducting the surgery, but the med technician states that she could be hallucinating, which is a side effect of damaging the occipital lobe. When Emmeline awakes, she finds herself without restraints, but still reeling from the pain of her past ritual, where she can see windows showing a forest which is described to be fake, possibly just a hologram display decoration. But once she examines the door, she is surprised to see a group of people waiting to see her, who give her endless praise on making it through the trial, where the overseer had even waited to see her. And when she says, "You waited for me," Jeanette replied with, "Of course, you are one of us." Later, Emmeline spoke about how she found herself thanking Altman and the marker a lot now, which is a notable change. But she also complained to herself that no one seemed to mention how the church vivisected her skull. But she also thinks about what people had said before, that the church could bring people closer to the ones they have lost along the way, that you can see your lost loved ones again, which plays on her mind, since she had seen Maddi whilst in the procedure. She also thinks things about Jeanette and how she had a vision before, but was still an initiate, that she hadn't gone through the soul cleansing yet, which is another hint that these visions could be coming from an active marker within the vicinity, or even within the cathedral's lower levels. The chapter ends with an acquire ceremony, where the church elevates Emmeline from the rank of initiate to the rank of the vested bronze, and she accepts her newfound responsibilities and rank within the Church of Unitology. Thank you for watching my analysis of the second chapter of Dead Space Deep Cover. If you enjoyed, subscribe for more videos like this one, and check out the lore playlist for more twisted Dead Space details. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and why not become a member to show your support even further, which, like Unitology, has its perks, which includes early access to new content, shoutouts within the videos, and opportunities to have your theories be read out by me in a personalized video or live stream, and so much more. And I hope to see you return very soon. But for now, be sure to leave this video having a good one.